Hey everyone, so I know not everybody loves this, but I gotta tell you, I do. I love the way snow can fall and just transform everything around us. It looks so beautiful to see it coming down, especially when it's sticking on the trees. It's just such a beautiful transformation. Of course, we know that it's not really transformation. I mean, in reality, all that is happening is this is just covering things over. It's not really changing it other than just for a moment, and pretty soon things will melt and it'll be back to where it was before. You see, real transformation means a change, a real change. A change in our makeup, a change in our being, a change in completely who we are to become different kinds of people. We talk about spiritual transformation as well, and spiritual transformation is more of a transformation that happens in our character. It transforms who we are completely and totally. It transforms our vision and our purpose. Spiritual transformation is a transformation in our understanding and the meaning that we have in life, how we see life, how we put things together, and how we recognize who is the source of that life. That's spiritual transformation. And when spiritual transformation happens to us, it takes us from where we were to a completely new place, a place that sees who God is in a different way. That's spiritual transformation, and that's the kind of transformation that we all hope that we can experience in life as Christians, as believers in God. Well, some of you may have noticed that throughout this last few months, I've been quoting Richard Rohr quite a bit. He's one of those discoveries that I made during this time of pandemic. I discovered some of his writings, and I found this devotional book or devotional emails that he puts out each week. And those emails have taught me a lot and have helped me, I guess in some ways, transform my understanding of God and who I am in relation to God. Well, not too long ago, just the other day, I was reading one of his devotionals, and he said this about transformation. He said, "The transformed person finds freedom in service of life and love. Your life is not about you. You are about life." I love that. I love the way he said that. Life is not about you. You are about life. And that life that we live is this life of love that has been transformed by the message of God in the person of Jesus Christ. Well, I was spending some time and I was kind of reflecting on that and thinking about that idea of our life being transformed and how life is not about us. We are about life, that life that is lived in a different way. And the thing that came to mind as I was reflecting on this was a story where Jesus has a conversation with his disciples about who he is. It's a story that's reflected in 3 of the 4 Gospels, but I like the way Mark says it best. This is how Mark tells the story in Mark chapter 8, beginning at verse 27. The story goes like this. Jesus went with his disciples to the town of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they answered him, "John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others one of the prophets." Then Jesus asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." And then Jesus sternly ordered them not to tell anyone about him. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said this to them quite openly. And then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, Jesus rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If anyone wants to become my follower, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it." Again, I love that passage and I love that idea, but as I think about this idea of transformation, and as I think about this idea of the kind of life that God has called us to live, I recognize that perhaps it's very different than what we often believe and the way we often view our life. I mean, if we look at that story, here's what struck me. First, Jesus begins by asking an identity question. He asks them, "Who do people say that I am?" And they respond to that, well, John the Baptist or one of the prophets. But then Jesus turns it and asks a faith question. "But who do you say that I am?" Well, Peter gives what seems to be the correct answer to that. "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God," is how Peter answers this. The problem is, Peter's understanding of the Messiah is one that looks to those past experiences and maybe some of those past ideas of what this Messiah was supposed to be about. Images of King David and this royal crown being placed on his head, and once again this power and control of the nation. That is what seems to come to mind for Peter. And so when Jesus goes on to explain exactly what the role of the Messiah is to be, which is to give up his life for others, to let his life be in service to others, Peter just can't take it because it doesn't fit the image that Peter had in his mind. It was as if Peter took this image of the Messiah and just laid it over Jesus and didn't allow himself to recognize what Jesus is doing and have Peter's whole understanding of what it meant to be the Messiah and what it meant to live an important life was as if he was covering it up. He didn't allow the image that Jesus presented to transform him. You see, life is about service. Life is about giving of oneself. Life is about being other-oriented. Life is about letting go of me and embracing God. At least that's how Jesus talked about life, and that's how Jesus showed life. And so while Jesus was attempting to transform their understanding, Peter was more interested in just covering it over. But that's not what Jesus is about. In other words, life is not about you. You are about life. And that life is a life that we don't give to ourselves, but we give to others. Whoever wants to save their life should lose it. Lose it by giving it to others. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if my Christian life is nothing more than covering up who I am, rather than finding a way to be transformed with who Jesus is calling us to be. Yeah, sometimes I think the Christian life that many of us live is just covering up the ugly parts of ourselves and pretending that it'll all be transformed, but that is not what God calls us to. God calls us to a life of true transformation. One where, in order to live the life of the eons, in order to live an eternal life, we need to be willing to give it up. Give up our lives in service of others. So, are we about transformation? Are we ready to be transformed? I hope and my prayer is that we are. Thank you so much for listening.